Hey everyone, and thank you for coming back for another video. Now, this is going to be the beginning of a series we're going to be going over, and it's going to be going over the fundamentals of Gunpla. Now, this is for beginners that are just getting into it, some people that are still kind of new or whatnot, and it's going to be going over just getting a snap build done and still making it look good without having the knowledge of scribing yet, or the ability to paint your kits. Like, you don't have the time, money, or the area to actually do a paint booth setup or anything. And through this process, we'll be going through the same kit from beginning to end in this whole series, so you can see the results at the end and what it will end up looking like. So I say we get into it. This first one's going to be over Nub Removal. Alright, now to get started, the kit we're going to be doing the series with is going to be the Prototype Goof Tactical Demonstrator, and this is from the Origin line. And all the Origin kits I've built have been really nice kits, so I figured this would be a fun one to do this for the series here. Oops, sorry, I'm bumping the table here. Now, some of the tools that you see I got laid out here, we're not going to be using. This is for beginners. You're not going to have some of the fancy tools that I've acquired over time and everything, so we'll kind of go through these. Of course, you're going to want your basic pair of nippers here. We're not going to be using these. These are God hands. These are pretty pricey, so we won't be using these. What we will be using, though, are my basic nippers, and these are my, can't even think straight here for a second. These are my workhorses, really, and these are Tamiya. They're fairly inexpensive, and they're a good set of nippers to start off with, definitely. Very nice. I've been using these for quite a while. And, of course, you'll always want a hobby knife. These always come in handy for whatever might possibly come up. Now, these are just a set of basic file set from Tamiya. I think I paid 10 bucks for these. And they're not bad to have. I will say, if you're using these for nub removal, be careful, because you're not paying attention to the slightest slip, it can gouge and take off a decent little chunk of your plastic if you're not paying attention while you're using them. And for sanding sticks, I also have this. This is the Gun Primer Razor Nub Removal. It's a glass nanofile, and this thing does work great. And to be honest, if I had to choose between these two tools, I would go with this, because no matter what, even using God hands, you still have nubs to remove. So this is not even half as much as the God hands are, so I would say pick this up first if you get any expensive tools or anything extra. And it doesn't hurt to grab some of their balancers. They're fairly cheap too. These come in quite nice as well. But we won't be using this as well, because these are not in your basic hobby shop. Now, these you can get in your basic hobby shop or on Amazon or anything like that, and they're Infinity, yeah, I think that's right, yeah, Infinity sanding sticks. And this set cost me about $15–20, I think, and it goes from 400 grit all the way to 7,000. So this will buff out any spot you sand on and everything and get it back to pretty smooth and looking good. We will be using these in the build here for all the nub removal and everything, so I do recommend you want something like this. And the tools we will be using are all stuff you can pick up in your local hobby shop, or like I said, Amazon, eBay, places of that such. So that is all we'll be using for this right here. And let's get into cutting a few parts off, and we'll start removing some nubs, and I'll show you my typical process about how I go about things. Alright, now to get started, of course, you're going to be opening up your manual, and most high grades kind of come in this pamphlet style manual. So to make things a little easier, I like to fold things up. There we go. Alright. Almost like trying to fold back a newspaper, which some of y'all probably don't really know what it's like to fold up a newspaper. That makes me sound kind of old. Anyways. Now, the instruction manuals are pretty straightforward and simple if you've never built any Gunpla. Now, a lot of the kits you get, some are transitioning to have a little more English to them, but they are mostly in Japanese, of course. But everything's pretty straightforward and simple. You can see here it's labeled body in this section. Then you have the waist you'll be doing the next part. But everything's labeled for the runners. You have D1, number 22, and then you'll just kind of go through that, and it shows pictures all the way through of how everything's supposed to be and how everything's oriented. So as long as you can just follow basic instructions, I'll get straight here in a second, and pay attention to what you're doing, this is no problem trying to build anything like this. You'll have no problem. Looking at instructions here, we're going to be starting off with the body, which is kind of the chest unit and everything, and we're going to be needing, what is it, E7 and a couple of parts from the D runner. So here's my D runner here. Alright, now when you're cutting these, you don't want to cut right up against the part, and you can kind of notice the difference when it comes to these. where the gate here meets up with the part, which is this little ball joint part, which is going to be for the neck. You want to cut a little ways away from it and leave you some extra hanging off. Just like so. And you'll want to do this for all of your parts, because you'll clean those little bits, extra bits off here in a moment. Sorry, this seems a little awkward for me. Cutting out these parts, you know, on camera makes it a little different. Alright, here's E7. We'll cut this one out. Alright, now once you got all your parts cut out that you're going to be doing at the moment, you still have this little extra hanging off. Now what I like to do is kind of, they refer to it as the 2-snip method, and you'll just kind of get to the runner, you'll cut a little bit, like about half of what's sticking off the nub, like that, and then just a little bit more, but you always want to leave a little bit sticking off. Doesn't have to be a lot, just as long as there's a little bit sticking up off the end of it, because it makes it a lot easier to sand off, and a little bit of distance from it when you go to sand it will keep you from having any stress marks, which is a whitening of the plastic, which when it comes to white parts isn't such a big deal. But it's also another reason why I picked this kit, because it has no white pieces, so there's no way hiding any stress marks on this since we're doing a straight build. We're not going to be painting or anything like that. So if you get too close with your nippers, it can just kind of, it goes to squeeze in and cut, it can stress the plastic and leave a little white mark there, and that's not something you want. So we'll go and finish cutting off all these and leave a little bit of it sticking out, then we'll use our sticks to start sanding some of it off. Alright, now once you got those all trimmed up and everything, like I said, you leave this just a little bit there. You can feel and everything. And you'll start off with your lowest grit. Now this set the lowest grit I have to start off with is the 400. And it's just basically simple and straightforward. You'll just sand it down slowly, you're in no rush. And it'll work its way down. And you can see there's just slowly making its way down in there. You see the little extra it's shaving off there. And as you start to get a bit closer to it, the part, you can start swapping out to some of the finer grits. We'll move to 6 here, and this will help polish up the plastic so it doesn't have that real rough sanded texture look to it, because it's not something you want when you're going to be straight building. And you'll just downgrade a bit here and there. Now this is the 800, and then let's go to the 1000 for right now. You want to kind of keep an eye on it, make sure you're keeping everything smooth and level with the area you're sanding. You don't want to have it all turned in any angle, because then it'll start misshaping the part on you. And by the time you realize it, it might be too late, so. And sometimes it is nice just to keep an old toothbrush. I'm sure everybody's got an old toothbrush laying around. Get some of the extra junk off there so it's out of your way. And there you can see that the nub's off. It's clean, it's smooth, doesn't look all gritty and filed or sanded real rough. And you'll just do this for about all of them. You'll just do the double snip sort of deal, kind of go around. Just remember to always leave a little extra on the part itself when you cut it from the original runner. Now there are some other ways of going about this, and a lot of people like to use a hobby knife to shave them down. Me, I do this depending on the situation and where the nub is located on the part, because sometimes getting something like this, kind of big and wide, you can't really fit it in there. In those instances, I do have these different sort of sponges like this. They're real flexible, and they come in different grits. This is 600. I got a few other grits of these as well. Typically use these for when I'm going to get ready to paint, because I'll use these to sand down the whole kit, and they just kind of make it quick and easy. But they can be used for nub removal as well. But when you're doing the nub removal, like with a knife here, where'd that other one go? I was just looking at it. There he is. You just want to kind of get the blade nice and even with the edge of the part, and you're just going to shave it. If you've ever whittled anything before, just little pieces here and there. Take your time. You're in no rush. And of course, that all turns out pretty good. And you just shave it off real slow. Now me, I usually don't do that unless I have to, because I have a bit of shaky hands, and plus if you go a little too deep, you're just real careful, or if you're not real careful, you can easily just kind of gouge out your plastic. So I try to avoid that any chance I can. But we'll finish sanding some of these other parts down, And we'll get a few more of the other parts for the chest, which are going to be some more colored parts. These are the inner frame sort of parts on the high grade, so they don't show much really, and they're not going to be showing on the outside of the kit when everything's finished. Your armor pieces are ones you really want to be careful with, so we'll get a few of those out here in just a moment. Now you can see here I went ahead and cut out a few of the armor pieces, and it's mostly kind of these dark blues or navy blue, and then the light blue here. So we'll go and clean up these. I cut them like I did the other pieces, just left the little tiny bits there on the edges. And of course, like before, we'll start with the 400 here. And last but not least for now, we're going to stop here again at the 1000 grit. Cleans it very nicely. And of course, there's a few more spots on here, but also want to show you these dark pieces, how they do. These two, that one there and that one there, I left a little extra sticking up. This one I kind of cut a little close on purpose to kind of see if it'll actually do that white stressing that I told you about. And I did it on this little part right here because this will be inside the chest and won't be visible in the end, so we won't have to worry about any of that showing. So we will once again go through our cycle here. Alright, now as you can see here where some of these other ones, these first ones were at, cleaned it very nicely, no marking, can't hardly even tell that it was there. Looks pretty good. And I think the other one was right here. Got that cleaned up real good. And now the one that I cut a little close on purpose, you see the little white dot there? That's what you want to avoid by leaving that little extra on the end of the nub on the piece and just sanding it down slowly, because on your outside parts you're not going to be able to get rid of that white stress mark unless you paint it or something like that. And that way you just have a little extra, sand it down, take your time, and then it'll make your kit look so much better. I mean, you're building a model kit basically, you're not in any rush, take your time and enjoy yourself. But yeah, that is why you leave the extra, because now that's not going anywhere. Which I'm glad I was smart and done it on the inside piece where it shouldn't be, at least I'm pretty sure it won't be seen. Oh crap. We'll find out in the end. But anyways, I just want to do a quick tutorial on the nub removal and everything, and now I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this out, kind of getting it all put together for our next video on this series. And in the next one we'll be going over getting rid of mold lines and seam lines on a kit. And now that I think about it, I didn't make sure this kit actually had seam lines or anything that need to be removed. We'll find out in the next video. But until then guys, I'll talk to y'all later.